I'm just reviewing a letter here I got from Nick Murray, and he has all the rights. It's written in September 2022. Nobody knows nothing. There cannot ever have been a more prolific nor more successful writer for films than William Goodman. 1931 to 2018, he won Oscars for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and All the President's Men. Wrote the dazzling screenplays for his own novels, The Princess Bride and Marathon Man, and accumulated countless other screenwriting credits and awards for high-profile movies. Late in his brilliant career, looking back over the whole history of the movies, William Goodman gave some serious thought to the entire creative process as it relates to the burning question of whether a film will succeed or not. He concluded, nobody knows nothing. This iconic sentence has come back to me again and again over my career with regard to the millions of words we see written and hear spoken every day concerning current events in the economy and the markets, and forecasting their outcomes. It returned to me as recently this morning that when I noted that in the coming week, on August 24th to be precise, we will mark the 6-month anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Since Russia began massing its armed forces all around the borders of Ukraine weeks before the actual invasion, going back, let's say for argument's sake, to the first of the year, my blissfully unscientific guess is that 100 million words have been written and spoken on this issue by U.S. journalists, economists, market strategists, pundits, and hundreds of other nameless, faceless members of the commentariat. Millions of those in the run-up to the actual invasion appeared to, in any number of erudite sources, to the fact that Putin wouldn't actually pull the trigger. This turned out to be wrong, yet, as far as I know, all of the soothsayers who exposed their hypothesis are still employed. I would be the first to acknowledge that I haven't taken an actual survey. On the occasion of the invasion itself, millions more words were confidently devoted to the thesis that monolithic Russia would roll over little Ukraine in days, weeks at most. In the event, wrong again. Throughout this extended exercise in the blind leading the blind, I'm guessing that perhaps 10 million words out of the total 100 million were devoted to the contention that, or if, when war did actually break out, the stock market, already staggering under a gauntlet of horrific inflation, supply chain disruptions, and the grim specter of Fed tightening, would simply crater. Many of those prognostications were closely and even brilliantly reasoned and by relatively credible commentators. I record without further comment that the S&P 500 index closed the night before the invasion at 4,226. As I write early in the trading days of August 22, it's at 4,228. Again, fair warning, the observation I'm about to make is no way scientific nor even vaguely authoritative. It is only my personal observation, and it is simply this. Out of the roughly 100 million words written since the beginning of the year around this very crisis, the number of those words forecasting that after 6 months either Ukraine would have fought Russia, however briefly, to a standstill and or the U.S. stock market would be unchanged was plus or minus 0. Like the fellow said, nobody knows nothing. The implications of this conclusion for the equity investor and his or her advisor are quite profound. For in fact, the war in Ukraine, together with the evanescent response of the equity market, forms just one chapter in the epic chronicle of things no one predicted, going back to the onset of the pandemic 2.5 years ago. Selections from that chronicle. The pandemic itself. Though one was inevitable at some point, nobody predicted that a 100-year global infection crisis would strike as suddenly and catastrophically as it did in early 2020. The lockdown. Given the immediate evidence that the virus lethality was overwhelmingly concentrated in the old and sick, nobody predicted that the response would be a total global lockdown and the almost instantaneous cessation of much of the world's economic activity. The recession. A 19% peak to trough contradiction of the U.S. economy would have been inconceivable if anyone were even contemplating it. No one did. That this contraction could start and end in 2 months would have been even further outside the realm of possibility. The bear market and its evaporation, there's no precedent for a one-third decline in the S&P 500 in 33 days. Nobody predicted it, and even if anyone had, no one could have predicted that such a decline could have been completely erased, peak to trough to peak, in 6 months less one day. The unending nightmare of the presidential election. A contested outcome of the November 2020 election was more than predictable. It was nigh inevitable. Nobody predicted the chaos of January 6th, nor that such an event might still be the focus of bitter partisan divisions in this country almost 2 years after Election Day. The resumption of the pandemic in deadly waves. Delta, Omicron, cue the monkeypox. A 40-year spike in inflation almost overnight. Anyone could have known, and many did, example Westbury, Grant, Steve Moore, that the hideous expansion of the M2 money supply long after the pandemic had already done its economic worst must lead to a perceptible increase in inflation. Nobody predicted the firestorm we actually got. Surging recession, risk, interest rate spike. Given that nobody could have predicted the severity of the aforementioned inflation surge, no one can yet predict how hard the Fed may be forced to strike back, thus bringing the very real specter of recession to the fore. China-Taiwan. If the preponderance of the commentariat was wedded to the belief that Putin wouldn't invade right up to the day he did, then nobody was predicting that China might move against Taiwan anytime soon. Don't look now, but anytime soon may have just gotten a hell of a lot sooner. Nobody knows. It's early today, but by the time the trading day is over, 24 talking heads on CNBC will have opinion with palpable confidence on what's going to happen with GDP, earnings, inflation, Fed interest rate policy, oil prices, and what the stock market might do next. This tsunami of untreated sewage will be supplemented in your inbox by another dozen items of commentary from your firm, the money managers they deal with, and various other product providers, and you still won't know anything more at the end of the day than you did when you woke up this morning, which is, for purposes of this discussion, nothing. When did you finally get it? It isn't just that we don't know virtually everything our clients are clamoring to have us tell them virtually all the time. It's that these things can't be known, and by the time today's unknowables have resolved themselves, A, the equity market will have already have risen to discount that resolution, and B, the world will be on to a whole new and different set of unknowables. The quest for certainty, or even some significant measure of clarity, is Sisyphus's pet rock. Be done with that. Fall back on first principles. The very first of these is the answer to the question, who are we, and what were we sent into the world to do? We are goal-focused, planning-driven, long-term equity investment advisors. We are here to help people reach a specific financial place by the time they retire. Then we're guiding them through a 2-person retirement of 3 decades or more, during which they will be able to draw a lifestyle-sustaining income that rises to offset increases in their cost of living. All the while, even as our clients' withdrawals grow, we're causing their capital to accrete as the legacies to those they love. Once we have a plan in place and a portfolio which we and the clients believe is optimally suited to that plan, on what basis would we change either the portfolio or the plan itself? Answer: we would have no basis for such alteration so long as the client's goals hadn't changed. This implies, of course, that we would never contemplate major changes in investment policy based on current or anticipated economic, financial, and or political conditions. Whatever those conditions are or may be, we're confident that our portfolio companies are responding not only rationally but opportunistically to any and all adversity. In rare instances, when a management team fails to do so, we're empowered our board of directors to bring in new managers who will. That's what we shareholder capitalists do. Sooner or later, we must finally infer from this that all our time and energy spent studying the economy and the markets over the short to immediate term are entirely wasted, and that in the long term, superior companies will, as they always have, find ways to prosper regardless of circumstances. At the end of the day, the economy can't be forecast, the market can't be timed, thus the correct time to add to one's long-term equity investments is whenever one has the money. The correct time to withdraw money from equities is when one needs the money. This is all you know on earth and all we need to know. And that's from 2023, Nick Murray, All Rights Reserves Reproduction without permission is prohibited. But I'm reading it because we need to study this and know this. So I'm going to do a little check here and stop the recording and just let's see what the market is today, because it's November 2023 and it's almost the end of the month, November 25th to be exact. So I did a little check here. So when he wrote this letter in August 22, that's year 2022, the S&P 500 was at 4,228. Today it's at 4,559, basically a year plus later. Over the past month, it's up 8.43%. Year to date, 19.23%. Over the last 6 months, 9.83%. 1 year back, going 1 year back to November, year before, 13.24%. 5 year, 65%. 10 year, 152%. So as you can see, things do accrete in value over time. You gotta look at the long term. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'm Timothy Ross. Have a blessed day.